Alright, welcome back to another video in my new Unreal multiplayer tutorial series. We are gonna be continuing where we left off in the last video. We are just gonna be keeping on the locomotion, so we haven't started with the combat yet. What we did in the last video was basically just we added some leaning to our character when we are running, and I showed you how to exchange the standard mannequin animations. So nothing really weird going on yet, but I think we are at a good place. So I did start recording this video, and some error happened, so I'm redoing it right now. So if there's some weird stuff in the code that shouldn't be there, it's probably because I forgot to delete it from between the crash. Right away I'm gonna tell you that what we're gonna do now is basically we're gonna add the sprinting and the walking state. So it's not gonna be a very complicated video. We're just gonna be improving on the locomotion basically. So first we need a sprinting animation, because in the last video we just set up the running, the standard running and the walking animation. So in our imported animations, I think I have some running animation somewhere. Actually, I'm just gonna go to the imported and type run, and this one is good. So as you can see, we have a running animation here, and it's a little bit faster than our jogging animation, so that's a good for a sprinting one, I think. I'm using the one from the, where is it from? ODS mannequin, I think. No, from, where was it? Mocap basic. Okay, the mocap basic. So I'm just gonna copy it, go back to our player, and we're gonna, instead of running, we're gonna add another folder called sprinting, which I already did in the previous when it's crashed. And there we go. So we have our sprinting. I'm gonna rename it again to animation sequence underscore player underscore sprint underscore F. I'm not sure why it says there is already one at this location. Okay, it's because of the crash, probably something weird is going on here. It says there already is an asset called that here, but anyway, I'm just gonna do like that for now. Then maybe I need to restart the editor. So we got our sprinting animation. I do want to modify it a little bit, because it is a little bit faster, but it's not really sprinty, isn't it? And I told you that I like to actually modify animations a lot. It makes it, yeah, it's an easy way to actually make your game feel less asset flippy as well. It's a good way to actually customize animations so that people might not be able to recognize them from the marketplace and things like that once the game are finished. Lots of times I feel like when I play a game I can actually see like, okay, this is the animation from this pack, and yada yada yada. Nothing wrong with that. I think you should use animations from the marketplace, so nothing wrong about that. I'm gonna do that in my game and everything. So I think it's Mortal Shell. Last I played Mortal Shell, and it was like, I think these are the animations from the Longsword Animset Pro. But as I said, nothing wrong with that. I love Mortal Shell, so just a side note. There are ways to actually make your games feel more like you did everything yourself. This is one of them. We're gonna modify this animation. So basically what you want to do now is, I already did it here, as you can see. Actually, remove track. Yeah, some things are left from the other video. So this is how it looks. So basically what I want to do is, if you go to your spine and maybe add spine 01, I'm gonna move it forward a little bit, and in my root I'm also gonna move it forward maybe 10 degrees, maybe one more one more, like that. Perfect. Here we go. So now we have modified this animation a little bit. As you can see, it looks a little bit more sprinty now, I believe. Yeah, that's a good sprinting animation, right? And you can see the difference between the two there. Yeah, quite happy with that result. Looks quite good. What we need to do now is we need to add the leaning one as well. Lean left and lean right. So for the, is this the left one? Yep. And what did we do? Select the root, 30. All the same as we did in the last video, so if this is the first video you're watching and you're wondering what's happening now, go back and check the first video and you will see what's happening. But we are basically modifying the animations to fit our needs. Perfect. So now we need to add the sprinting states to our, oops, remove that. Ignore all of this. I'm gonna come back to that later. So now we actually need to add the sprinting state as well. So go into your animation blueprint or blend space, I mean. So we have our unarmed blend space, and you can see now that the maximum value is 500 here. So we're actually gonna add something to that. So we're gonna add, so the maximum value is something like 650, and we're gonna move the standard running animations down, so they are now at 487 instead. If you want them to be at exactly 500 still, you can just right click, remove snap to grid, and just move it to where you want it, 500 or something. I'm just gonna keep it snapped. 497 is fine for me. You can also add more grids here if you want to. If I wanted to add 8 instead, and maybe I could get it to something more, 468. Yeah, you get the picture. I'm just gonna keep using 4. So for the 651, we want to add the sprinting animations. So go ahead and drag in the sprint. There we go. And the lean left is going to be to the right, and the lean right is going to be to the left. And check it out in the preview. We have our walking animation. We have a running animation with a little bit of lean, and then we have our sprinting. And look, that looks nice, doesn't it? Bam, sprinting. Looks great. I think. Yeah, looks good. So that's about it, but still, it's still gonna look the same since our standard movement speed is 500. It's not gonna be anything weird here. So what we want to do now is we want to, when we press a button, we're going to enter the sprinting state, and when we press another button, we're going to enter the walking state. But the standard is going to be the jogging state, which is in between. We also want to replicate this so that both the server and the client knows what walking speed we are at, so we don't jump around, and otherwise it will just create weird errors when moving around. So this is going to be our first replication thing that we're actually going to be doing, and also this is like the easiest thing to actually do. So we're going to start with the basic stuff and work our way up. We're going to do some multicast, and we're going to do some rep notifiers later, but for now just easy variable replication. So if you go into your player third-person character, I also disabled the jump, because we're not going to do the jumping, or at least I'm not going to do the jumping in the regular way, as you can just run around and jump everywhere. You can do that if you want to. I'm going to do it more in like a Souls type of movement, where you run, and if you are in a sprinting state and you release the sprinting state or press the space button again, you will jump. but it's going to be very easy for you to do your own way. I'm just going to show you how the functions work, and then you can set up the functions in whichever way you want to. But basically we need a space bar, and we need another key for the walking. I'm just going to use V. You can use whatever you want to. So what we do here is we're going to sprint. So from this space bar, we are going to, when we press it, we are going to sprint. When we release it, we are going to stop sprinting. So you're only sprinting while the space bar is pressed. And the same with V. When V is pressed, we're going to walk, and when it's released, we're going to stop walking. So create another graph, new graph, and we're going to call this functions. And now you're wondering, why do we have a graph called functions when we have functions here? We have all our functions on rep, which is one that I did before. We can remove that one. We have functions here that we can just use, and that's true. You have the standard built-in functions here. The difference is that the functions we're going to use in this graph are going to be custom events, which is also a type of function. The thing is that the built-in functions here, they aren't replicated, so you can't replicate them specifically, and also you can't use delays in them. And recently I'm not a fan of delays, so you should avoid using delays whenever you can, because it's an easy way to mess up code, I think. But you can use delays in custom events. So our first function is going to be, and the reason we want this function is because we want to reuse it lots of times. So we're going to do a walk speed function or max speed function. So it's going to be the same function that we use from the spacebar and the V key. So it's not going to be like a function for sprinting and a function for walking. It's going to be one function for setting the maximum speed instead. And then we can also use that function later on for spells like slow movement speed or things like that. It's going to be the same function that sets the movement speed, which is a lot better. So you don't have a million functions specifically for everything, because that's also going to confuse you later. So create a custom event, call it client set walk speed, set max walk speed, and custom event server set max walk speed. And this is what I do when basically what we're doing here is we're just replicating built-in nodes in Unreal Engine. So because you have one, if you get your character movement, you can see here, you have your set max walk speed. So basically what you can do here is you're setting your max walk speed, and if you're doing a single player game, you don't need to do all these replicated functions. So basically if you did a single player game, you would just drag out from the character movement and set walk speed here, and you wouldn't have to worry about replication or anything. So it's a lot easier to actually make a single player game, because you don't have to think about the replication issues everywhere. But at the same time, I think multiplayer stuff are very scary at first, but once you get used to them, they are actually easier and easier. But at the same time, I've been doing Unreal for about a year, and I still get mind boggled by replication issues sometimes, so it's horrible. So yeah, the client set max walk speed, run on client. Server set max walk speed, run on server. And also I should have done this in the first video, but a disclaimer, this is probably nothing that I do is going to be like, if you're planning on doing a large scale multiplayer game with like 50 players, it's going to be tough using blueprints, I believe. So some of the stuff that I do might not be optimized for that type of gameplay. I'm more focused on like maybe a 4 to 6 player co-op game or something like that. This is everything that I do is going to work fine for that. executes on server custom events. Yeah, perfect. Server. Nice. So what we want to do here is basically from the client you want to set the max walk speed, get character movement, set max walk speed. So we want to set the max walk speed on the client, and we also want to set the max walk speed on the server. So from the client max walk speed set, you want to call the server events. So server set max walk speed. So from the client one, we're calling this one, which is on the server. So we want to pass the values. Pass the values and pass the values. So as you can see here, now we are passing the values. So whenever we call the client set max walk speed, we will decide what the walk speed will be. It will then set the walk speed on the client. We are on the client here, which will get passed onto the server through this node, come out here and set the walk speed on the server as well. So this is now a replicated function. Comment. I'm just going to call set walk speed. There's our first replicated function. So what do we do here? On the spacebar pressed, we call client set max walk speed, and on released we also call it. And we're going to do the same thing with the V key. And we rarely want to hard code things. It's up to you. You could just set the walk speed here, but since we are actually doing a RPG multiplayer game, we might as well start with the variables we're going to use later right now. So we're going to promote the max walk speed here to a variable, and this is going to be called jog or sprint speed. We're going to promote this one. It's going to be called standard or run speed, and we're going to promote this one as well, walk speed. And the reason we want to do these as variables is because then we can change the values of these variables, because you can have standard values for them, but later on maybe we have talents and things like that, so the talents will set and make that your sprint speed is faster or your run speed is faster, and then you will just exchange these variables here. So let's categorize them as stats, and just stats and stats. So those are our basic stats for now, and as I said, keep track of everything from the start, just so that you don't mess up everything. So on release, we're always going to go back to run speed, and we need to set the default values. Run speed is going to be 500, sprint speed is going to be 650, and walk speed is going to be 160 maybe. And make sure you're, as you can see, 160, 487, I think 487 is nice, so let's do 487. And also in your standard one, character max walk speed is going to be 487. And actually you don't want to hard code it here, because basically what you want to do is on the begin play, basically what you want to do from the begin play is you want to get this one, character movement, set max walk speed, and you want to set the max walk speed to the run speed, so that every time we start the game you set it to your run speed. You could just hard code it here, because this is going to be the one before event begin play, but if you have, as I said, later on a talent that increases your standard movement speed and you load the game, then you want to always set it to your new talent value, basically. Otherwise you would have a bug there that when you start the game your talent isn't working, basically. And now you're also wondering, like, why aren't we replicating this? Why aren't we doing the client set mark speed function here? Because from the event, also this is like one of the things that are extremely mind-boggling with multiplayer stuff, is that the event begin play also replicates a lot of things by itself. So this is one of the things. Standard variables get replicated from the event begin play always, no matter what. But what you also need to do for these ones that we forgot is, if we're not multicasting them and we're not rep notifying them, which we are not, and I will get into what those things are later, we are only setting this variable on the client and on the server. And in that case we also need to make sure that these variables are replicated, otherwise they won't replicate. Because we're not forcing the network now to all clients and everything. The multicast basically casts the value to all the clients, and the value then don't need to be replicated because it forces it, but in this case it needs to be replicated. So, are we finished? Let's just see if it's working. Yeah? Okay. So just gonna do it like this so that you can actually see it. Actually, let's do like this. New editor window. There we go. Ah. Bum, 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 bum. I'm just gonna make this a little bit bigger, and we're gonna make this a little bit bigger. Ooh, some mannequin ass. There we go. Okay, so let's see. We have client 2 and client 1. We are running. Press V and we are walking, and you can see we are walking on both the clients. Release V and we are jogging again, and press V and we are sprinting. Ooh. Ta-da! And the lean is working as well, I think. It's hard to tell. Yeah, it's working. Yeah, the lean is working. Perfect. So we are getting somewhere. 22 minutes video. Uh-oh, record. So yeah, I think that's about it for this video. And what we're gonna do is we're probably gonna do the walking as a crouching or as a sneaking thing, but before you ask in the comments like, can you add crouching as well, because I want to be able to crouch, there's no need to actually add crouch in this case. If you want to have crouching instead of walking, or if you want, then you would just remove these animations, the walking animations, and exchange them for crouching animations. So basically, do I have a crouching animation? Which fine, I'm just gonna find scale. Yeah, okay, yeah, good. So it's the play one. So basically, just for show, this is a crouching animation, as you can see here. No. So just for show, I'm just gonna show you what I mean. I'm just gonna move that there. So as you can see, it's not a running, walking animation now, it's just a, as you can see, whenever I press V, I'm crouching. Actually, it's not a super good way to do it, because as you can see, I realize that now. Okay, maybe we will actually add crouching later. Sorry about that. Let me know in the comments if you want crouching. It's super easy to add, so I might actually add that just because it's easy. Yeah. That's about it for this video. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or there's anything you would like me to add. Thanks and bye.